Good morning, St. Matthew's family, near and far. Welcome to the last quarantine edition of Sermon on the Porch. And it is with deep gratitude that we offer my family, that we offer deep appreciation and gratitude and love. As we sit out here and appreciate nature and the great outdoors and mechanized vehicles. Will you center yourself with me in the Lord's presence and pray our St. Matthew's Collect? Holy God, whose beloved Son commanded us to go forth and make disciples of all nations, help us to bring the word to others in our community. Create in us deep love for you, dear God, and a growing love for our neighbor. Through outreach at our Episcopal House and Sunday gathering space in Uptown, may we bring those who desire to know you better, and even on the World Wide Web as well, to share the Holy Eucharist with all who hunger for belonging, showing us our future and the reflection of our present mission as we celebrate the past that brought us this far. Through Jesus Christ, who lives and reigns with you in the unity of the Holy Spirit, one God, now and forever. Amen. As we hear our lessons today, we need to hear the words of Jesus as he looks into our eyes, and as he looked at the eyes of his disciples and says, you give them something to eat. After seeing the crowd, Jesus felt compassion for them, and we often emphasize the miracles in this feeding, but we overlook this deep sympathy, the literal movement of Jesus and compassion to act. And so too should it be with us. And while we may feel sympathy for someone, how often does the emotion result in action, creative action, innovative action, beyond our meager offerings, trusting that what we offer is enough? Jesus cures the sick people in the crowd because he cared for them. All of this was on the heels of Jesus just hearing the news of John the Baptist's beheading. Imagine the grief and the uncertainty and the confusion swirling around these 5,000 people, around Jesus. And these people are coming to Jesus for hope, something to hang on to, something that can be real, to feed their souls, to feed their faith, to hold on to hope. And so after teaching the crowds and instructing his disciples about the kingdom of heaven, all the way through the past chapters up until now, Jesus makes the kingdom of heaven, the reign of God, real and tangible through his acts of healing and performing miracles. In this text, a new world ethic, a new world economy, in essence, an economy of love, compassion, and mercy, where all we can do is offer what we can, but it is blessed by Jesus, and it is enough, beyond enough. We hold that thought because ultimately through Jesus' acts of healing, the kingdom of heaven, there is compassion. People share their resources. There is more than enough for everyone, is what we hear in all our lessons today. This is God's economy, of the reign of God, the kingdom of heaven. It's one of participation in the care for another human being, offering our meager best, blessed by Jesus, creating abundance, giving away. So feeding the 5,000 is a compassion story. It is an abundance story in which God's providence solves a problem that seemed impossibly large and overwhelming for mere mortals. Jesus opens the minds and possibilities of what God can do with what we can give. And it is also a Eucharistic story, a sacramental story. with overtones of the Eucharist and offered, blessed, broken, given. And this, then, if I can pivot, because as I read these lessons, I look at the polarities between prosperity and abundance. And what we find in Jesus in our lessons today is an abundance gospel, a gospel of giving away what we have and God blessing it and filling and satisfying the people. It's a giving away gospel. It's a compassion gospel, a love gospel, a not about us gospel. It flies in the face of a prosperity gospel where if you've read of it before, you might have heard where faith is measured in one's return on investment. It's about what I'm going to get when I give. And so your reward from God is in direct proportion to your faith. And so in essence, it's you measure your success by how much faith you have, and then it can be judged. And the more money you can give, as some preachers, TV preachers would say in this gospel of prosperity, God will give back to you 100-fold, a job, a check in the mail. It's a prosperity. It's a what's in it for me dynamic. It's my motivation is to give so that I can get. It is a perverted gospel in the sense that what Jesus is saying in an abundance economy of God is that it's centered in what can you give away so that the other, the person, your neighbor, can prosper there. It's not about you prospering, it is prospering your neighbor. And in that, there's abundance because it's love, it's compassion, it's mercy, it's grace. Says the gospel is all about what I can give away, equally offered and received, abundance on behalf of the other. So that's the gospel that I want to seek, and I hear echoing through all our lessons. Jesus offers a gospel answer of abundance to the disciples. Trust, grace, and a work on behalf of the other, not themselves. Where the disciples initially thought, take the burden off of themselves, we'll just send the people away because, we don't want to have to answer to that. It was a sense of self-protection maybe, or compassion for them, but Jesus stops them, the disciples, in their tracks and says, no. You give them something to eat. What Jesus is saying is an asset-based response. Jesus is saying, the answer is not out there in town, it's right here amongst us, and that we have all we need in this community right now of 5,000 plus people to satisfy the needs. That we have the gifts and everything here now. We just have to have the imagination and the creativity and the faith and trust to believe that if we give away, then the community will receive. It's as if DeWitt Jones, a great photographer, National Geographic, he talked about it's not about being the best in the world. It's about being the best for the world. To be the best in the world is something that I can receive accolades and prosperity for me. When I can be the best for the world, it's about what I can give the world, what I can offer the world, how I can serve the world, and in that to be the best for the world. That's the wisdom of abundance. It's being the best for the world and giving our best to others with no expectation of return. But even in doing that, there is more than enough to go around when you give away to the other. Abundance is something that brings a return of value to the heart. Instead of saying, what's wrong with this situation, we say, well, what's right with the situation? What do we have right now? Abundant gospel is so other-focused that it believes that we are enough, that we have all we need right here now to belong, to befriend, to believe. Success is based on relationship and love, not numbers or lack or what I can get from a situation. And that if I have more faith, I can get more possession, more things. Such is the way of the gospel of abundance. Jesus is enough, and we have all we need to be the best for the world. Each of us offers our meager gift, but taken together it becomes a blessing. And God is manifest in the effort, and the reign of God's economy is manifest in our giving, our trusting, our sharing, and our gathering. So such is the way of the gospel of abundance. Jesus says they don't need to go away. You give them something to eat. This in the Greek, the you is emphatic. Jesus is making no bones about it. It is you that must participate in the feeding of these people. You bring me the meager offering. I bless it, offer it to God, and give it to you, and you distribute it. Talk about the distributive justice in that sense of distributing to others so that no one has lack. Christ takes our contribution, however modest, and makes it enough, makes it abundantly clear. Christ takes that which we have. We, like the disciples, are participants in the miracle of abundance. As I conclude, we realize first, we must recognize the hunger, as the disciples did. As we are tempted to make the situation want to go away or fix it, no, Jesus says, bring it to me, what you have. We take stock of our assets in the community. We honor the offering. No matter how meager, Jesus says it's enough, and Jesus blesses it, and he gives it to us to distribute. And everyone then is blessed by the offering. We are participants in the miracle of hope in this world because we follow Jesus. Jesus satisfies the hungry heart. And so the feeding goes on, and we are disciples in this world, recognize the hunger in this world. And in that, Jesus comes to us and he looks us straight in the eye and he says, you give them something to eat. You give them something to wear. You give them something to do. You give them something to learn. You give them love. You give them hope. You give them peace. You give them joy and belonging. You give them life. You give them justice. You give them instruction. You become the change. You are enough, and I will bless you, and I will make you an abundant offering to community if you just give yourself away. So in those prophetic words, the vision of abundance in Isaiah, ho, everyone who thirsts, come to the waters, and you that have no money, come buy and eat. Come buy wine and milk without money, without price. What a vision of the economy of God. To me, that we are focusing on the reign of God as an abundant reign that we participate in. And so abundant community to feed the world. The last image I'll get is just an illustration that just popped in my mind. And you may have heard the illustration. There's this man who dies and is speaking to God, and he visits heaven and hell as two images. And in hell he finds a banquet table filled with luscious food everywhere. And the people around that table are emaciated. They are hungry. You can count all their bones. They are just starving. And because they're holding on to 5-foot forks that they can't get food into their mouths. And so they're just suffering through hunger. That was an image of hell. And so they take another side trip and they go to heaven. And heaven, same table, same food, same amount of people around this table, but all the people around that table are just laughing, filled with life. They're whole and they're just full with energy. And the difference between the two was they also had 5-foot forks. But the difference was, instead of trying to feed their own face, they took their forks to feed the person across the table from themselves. So they ended up feeding each other instead of trying to feed themselves. It was a beautiful image of, at least that's really an image of hell on earth and heaven on earth. Because the more that we try to make it about us, we will starve for love, for hope. But when we turn to feed the other across from us, we are all then fed. So, on that note, I'll close, and I just close with a song that's been in my head today, and I invite Lindsay to offer that up with his gracious gift.